Victoria. So thank you for welcoming me to your New South Wales gathering. It is very nice to be here and to be able to move around again. I am a lecturer in the Department of Maths and Physical Sciences at the Trobe, and I teach statistics. So that's a little bit of context about me. And I teach one of the subjects I teach is a big first year subject, which can have anywhere from 600 to 1,000 students per year. The subject runs in both semester 1 and then again in semester 2. And it's a relatively new subject. So that's the context within which I'm going to talk today. And I'm going to talk about, so like all of us, I found myself in a situation in 2020 where I had to do all the assessments online. That's something we probably all have in common. And I started using something called R exams. So that's what I'll be talking about, notwithstanding the other discussions we've already been having today about online exams versus face-to-face and all of those considerations. Through doing this, I've found some positives to using R exams in the way that I have been. So I'll talk a little bit about what R exams is, different things that I've done with it, and then I'll finish off with some question design considerations and a few reflections about it. So that's where I'm headed for the next 15 to 20 minutes, I suppose. So probably most of us have at least heard of R, if not are very familiar with it. It's a statistical programming language, and R exams is an R package that can be used within R. And so I've just got a screenshot of the website here, and it allows one to generate large question banks at the click of a button, and marking can be automated if necessary. So that's what R exams is, and that's what I've been using. So how does it actually work? Well, the first step is to set up variables. So that's a screenshot of using R code to do that. Defining the correct answer and distractors. So this is, for example, for a multiple choice question, but there are other types of questions, can have numeric questions and a few other types as well. Writing the question can be done in either LaTeX code or R Markdown code, which it is here, but can use a combination of LaTeX and HTML code within that. And then this is where the magic happens. I really like this part because to me it seems like magic. I've got this function here. It's called exams to Moodle. We use Moodle for our LMS system at La Trobe. And based on the previous 3 steps, it's going to grab this file, which is an R Markdown file. And this part here that I've highlighted, n equals whatever, I've got n equals 50 there, but you could choose n equals 1 or n equals 1,000, and whatever that number is, it'll generate that many questions randomly of this particular question. So it makes randomization much easier. What this function does is it generates an XML file, which then gets uploaded into Moodle. I'll show you what happens when you do that in a minute. That's where the magic happens. But before I do that, I just wanted to point out that I'm using exams to Moodle because we've got Moodle at La Trobe, but it can be used for a lot of other LMS systems as well, like Blackboard and Canvas. And you can even use it to make printed exams that could be multiple choice and then scanned for automatic marking. So it's pretty versatile. But when you get that XML file and upload it into the LMS, what you then have is a question bank there. So it's fully integrated within the LMS. You can see here within this example, it can also generate plots and other things. So that's how it works. The different types of questions available. So there's numeric questions, multiple choice. So either multiple choice that has a single correct answer or multiple choice with multiple correct answers. The string type question, so that's where you've got a short answer question, which is a specific word, or probably more ideally a word that the student needs to get exactly right. Or close, which is a Moodle type question, and that can be a combination of all of these things, so you can have a more extended question for that type. So I'm just going to show a few examples of questions. So anything that I've got highlighted in orange here could be a variable. So this is an example of a short, a numeric answer. Everything here could be changed. So here I'm getting them to calculate the standard deviation based on the variance, but this same question could be the other way around. And here we've got some feedback. So that can also be specified within our exams, and you can specify feedback that is general for a question, so all students would get the same feedback for the question. That's what this one is. So if they've struggled to answer that, then it guides them back which topic of the readings to have a look at. Or you can also make it generate specific feedback. This is particularly relevant for a multiple choice question. So depending on what they've chosen, you can decide what feedback you want them to get. This is another type. So this is an example of a multiple choice question where there's multiple correct answers, and you can shuffle the order in which these choices are listed. You can have a larger list of choices, and it could randomly select a selection of those, so that not every student will have the same combination of answers to choose from. And you can also produce R output that will be generated randomly for each question as well. And so this particular question, there is some R output, and here they're being asked to interpret that R output. This is another type. So this is just a multiple choice question with a single correct answer. And this is not a trivial kind of thing. So they've been given some information, and then they need to go away and calculate a confidence interval and come back and choose the right answer. So that's what that question is doing. And this is an example of the closed type question where you can combine multiple choice and numeric and whatever you want really. So, and you can see here that this is a drop down. We've got a few drop down options here that the students can do, but there's also an option to have the radio style multiple choice questions within this as well. And you can build in a tolerance for numeric answers so that for rounding purposes, the student are not penalised for those types of issues. I've used it for a few different types of assessments. So a lot of the examples we've just seen, probably not all of them, but some of the examples we've seen come from formative or low stakes quizzes. So there's weekly quizzes that the students do just to help them keep up with the readings and what we're doing. I've also used it for assignments, and this has been useful because I can have a combination of automatically marked questions, but then some manually marked questions within the quiz as well. And generally when I use it for an assignment, so there's the option to include an individualized data set within that question that the student will download, and then they'll go away and analyze that data set in whatever software program that they need to use, and then they come back and input their answers. And I've also used it obviously for summative assessments, so exams. It could be used for tests as well. So this is an example of an assignment. Like I said, they download this data set, they go away and analyse it, they come back and put their answers in, and every student gets their own individualised data set. But the nice thing is that that all of this is automatically marked. But then there can also be other types of questions within that same assignment. They'll still use their individualised data set, but in this particular question, what they're doing is creating a plot. Then they upload the plot that they've created. they're providing their code as well, so that can be checked. And they're also, the part of this question involves them interpreting that plot. So this is a little bit more involved, and this particular question would be marked manually. And then, and the nice thing as well is that you can, so this is a solution to the question that we just saw, I think. And this solution, which is within the LMS quiz, obviously the students wouldn't see that, but the markers would see that. And every solution that they see like this would be based on that student's particular data set. So they can refer to that while they're marking. So that's how it works with a few examples of how I've used it. I thought I would talk a little bit about question design considerations. And this is only in the context of exams, and this relates specifically to the situation where we're in the situation where we need to do an open book exam, open web, and it's not invigilated, so it's an online exam. And a lot of the strategies have been adapted from, I've got a couple of references here. And so what we want to do in that context is disrupt collusion, disrupt contract cheating, and write questions that Google can't help with. So I think these are probably things that we've all been thinking about, especially since 2020. So I'll just mention a few of the things that I've considered. There's probably a lot more. So randomization of questions and big question banks can be useful. Shuffling the order of the multiple choice options. It's not no rocket science there. A nice thing about the randomization is that subtle changes can change the outcome of the answer. So, for example, something can go from significant to non-significant if you're doing a hypothesis test based on the data that student randomly gets given. And so these types of things ideally are going to disrupt collusion, because if a student's trying to work together with another student on the same question but they've got different data, that type of collusion hopefully would be disrupted. In terms of asking questions that Google can't help with, testing understanding is useful. So interpreting output that the students have been provided, as well as what's the correct answer, having within the options, the multiple choice options, well, what's the reason that that's correct? So having some more complex choices within the multiple choice options, reversing the questions, so providing an answer, but then ask if it's right or wrong, for example, or asking for some more interpretation. And again, assessing multiple things at once, which these types of multiple choice questions, it's obviously a lot more effort to craft them, but once they're there, then it's useful to have. In terms of disrupting contract cheating, that's very, very difficult when we're in an uninvigilated setting, but I guess there are a few things that we can do to disrupt it at least. One of them is to write questions that are idiosyncratic to my instance of a subject that somebody on Chegg isn't going to know the answer to, because it's too specific to what's being provided to my students. So a few reflections on having used this approach. For the low stakes quizzes, I think it's been a really efficient way to produce large question banks. And what that means is that I don't really mind how many times students attempt the quizzes, because those quizzes are really designed to help the students learn and keep them on track in the subject. And based on the stats anxiety literature, this is a positive thing especially for a big service teaching cohort in which a lot of students do experience stats anxiety. So giving them a generous time limit as well as multiple attempts can help to make that type of assessment a lot less pressurized. For the assignments, it's been useful to be able to create those individualized data sets that students will analyze. It reduces the marking time a lot because so much of the assignment can be marked automatically. There's still some manual marking that needs to be done, but it's probably reduced the marking time for those assignments to about a third of what it would have been otherwise. And they still get to upload their plots and interpret things and explain things within that assignment. So it's a good option to use that combination. For exams, it's possible then to write a fully individualized exam that is also fully marked automatically, which is a useful thing to have for a really big cohort. And I found that doing that still gets a really good distribution of marks, and writing the exam this way did get a good discrimination between students in terms of their ability. So that's been a positive thing as well. This slide just shows the distribution and the discriminative efficiency. So that was all fine. It did require a fair investment of time. So there was a learning curve to learning how to use this. But I found it to be well worth it in terms of the marking time reduction that we got, prevention of academic misconduct, particularly in the situation where we can't have a face-to-face invigilated exam. This allowed at least to put in some preventative measures. In terms of the investment in time, it was a big investment of time initially, but as well as the marking time reductions, I think that's going to pay off in future years. Because of the amount of randomisation in there, a lot of it can be reused. I normally set a seed when I'm using R so that I can, if I rerun something, I can regenerate exactly the questions that I've put on the LMS. But if I change that seed, then it will create a whole new set of questions again. So it's useful in that way. And when I was learning how to use it, I found the internet very helpful. So that's all I have.